Could there be a billionaire wrestler?
No. No. Why take chances on breaking your fucking neck? You got $1 billion.
See, that'd be a good gimmick if there's a billionaire wrestler, but you never get to see him wrestle. Every time he gets near the ring, like one of his dad's henchmen try to grab him, and then just fight around ringside, and then he leaves. You never actually.
Well, now you're doing Tony Khan's reality show.
Well, no, his dad's henchmen are off every Wednesday. It seems.
His dad's henchmen are off, all right. Good Lord, I think Cadbury needs to rein him in. That may be a natural segue to this week's AEW Dynamite was so ridiculous that I'm going to talk about a couple of segments just to illustrate some of the things that they're not going to be able to control in the future that are getting out of hand. But there was some controversy over the week about the arena that they were in this week. Now, they've been running the smaller buildings, and we said, yes, they should do that. Because when they were in the NBA arenas with 3,000 people, it looked sad, and it was a needless expense of whatever. And even though I've, mentioned the Brady Music Center in Cincinnati or whatever in a tongue-in-cheek fashion the other day, at least those places look still professional. It's the kind of like the Hammerstein Ballroom effect in New York with the cool architecture. You can get something out of a lot of these places, right? But now they've started, a 2-week residency in the historic 2300 Arena in Philadelphia. And boy, howdy, this don't do them any favors, because I'm sorry for the people that, in that part of the country that somehow have the fond memories of the ECW arena, which is what this is. But not only does it, now that it's been renovated 15 times, it still looks like shit on camera. It's low rent. It's like they're in a warehouse. That building is the biggest toilet that I've ever worked in. And imagine how much fucking ground, Brian, that takes in.
Yeah. No, you've been in a lot of Philadelphia.
No, I've been in a lot of fucking toilets. Not but all over the world, but either it was a shitty facility in terms of being out in the middle of nowhere, or horrible Houma, Louisiana, with a shitty locker room in the middle of a mud field, or, some times the facility might be okay, but goddamn, the neighborhood is the shits. I remember for Ring of Honor years ago, I was at the fairgrounds in Detroit, which didn't seem to be a flourishing location. But for a combination of the worst neighborhood you've ever been in a major city and the biggest shithole of a building, this one is it. And I don't know what for some people, the magic is about the thing. You were there before I was. You were there in the 90s.
Well, you were there in the 90s too, but I was there before you, yes.
Well, they snuck me in and out, and I wasn't there long. But I spent 12 hours a fucking day there numerous times in 2009 and 2010 when Ring of Honor was doing that HDNet show. And the reason why I said that the building caused some controversy this past week is because they had the union picketing the building and picketing AEW for the production that they're doing there, for not holding up union standards or whatever. More on that in a minute. But that's the thing. Have you been in the locker room area of that building?
I have not.
The guy that owned that place, or owned it or ran it or whatever, the guy that was doing stuff there, I remember his name was Roger, right? They always talk Roger, ask Roger. And in that building, they were just doing, you can't say renovations, that maybe remodel, but like the locker room walls were just wallboard put up on studs at his fancy. If he wanted to create a new wall, one time I went in there was a goddamn window in the room. There hadn't been a window before, but it looked out onto a goddamn big empty fucking room with nothing in it. as whether they're changing things. And there was a stairway that went to nowhere, and there was like 2 toilets in the entire locker room area. Sometimes they all didn't work, but the point being, Roger would just build this shit, these hallways to nowhere. When he had an idea, there was no code enforcement. There was no permits done like you have to do in a big city. He was just doing this shit. So I can easily believe that there is no chance that they have ever had union labor on a wrestling show that aired from that building before. The ECW was paying a union or all these other indies and these hardcore groups. So I'm not championing Tony Khan's cause, but if they're going to picket him just because they know he's got some money, but in this dump that seats 850 people, if nobody else has been using this union labor, why should he? I guess that is what the statement that I'm making first and foremost. You see what I'm saying, Brian?
I do. It seats 1,300. Why didn't they picket when WWE ran there with NXT?
Well, and also, who said it seats 1,300? Did you see 1,300 people there? And it was packed because it's a big fucking room with chairs on the floor. I don't believe 1,300 people.
Well, I'll tell you, the bleachers are less packed now than they were then.
Did you even see bleachers? Or is it all just flat? I remember Paul had bleachers across from the deal, but I did.
Yeah,
did I miss bleachers?
They had bleachers on this week's Dynamite.
Well, maybe the bleach got in my eyes. But that's the point, is between that and the neighborhood. And again, you can tell me probably better than I know why the fuck that building is there in that place, but it sits under an interstate. When you're out in the back parking lot where guys would find used syringes and condoms in the parking lot inside the barbed wire fence, you're standing underneath the interstate with goddamn semi trucks going over the top of you. And it was next to the road that came to the building was gravel. It wasn't paved. And it was next to a outlet store of some description that sold men's suit jackets with 2 buttons on one side and 3 buttonholes on the other side. And I don't know, it would.
Joe Hand's office was over there too.
Well, would this whole building or complex of buildings have been condemned years ago if not for people continuing to run wrestling events in this building?
No. Well, yeah, remember they had a pretty successful midnight bingo operation going there for a while.
Oh, I forgot about the bingo.
No, I mean, I'm serious. I was talking to someone recently about it, and they said, yeah, I remember leaving ECW. I never even got to see this. I remember leaving the ECW arena, there'd be just a line of like old women waiting to get in. You know, this is late at night.
What old woman? What old woman would want to go there in the dark?
Well, bingo. I mean, bingo's a big draw.
Jesus Christ. So is fucking attempted murder on the streets. Anyway, the point is, if AEW, I don't think they were mistreating anybody any worse than any of the other fucking promotions that have run that building, and there's many of them that have. But if they want a nice warehouse that's been customized for a very little amount of money, they ought to call the new OVW owners over in West Faversham and rent the Davis Arena. It looks better on TV than this thing did. Anyway, should we start talking about the show?
Okay, that was the running down of Philadelphia and the ECW arena, or the 2300 arena.
I didn't say anything bad about Philadelphia, although it has never held the same place in my heart since they closed all those Ribbit locations. But no, this building.
No, it's a historic place. So they say if you close your eyes and squint in the right light, you could see Gino Moore letting air out of tires. The ghost of Gino Moore.
Yeah, a tornado came through there last month. It did over $3 million worth of improvements.
Hey, I'm sure you're going to bring it up during the review, but, we're talking about the building and the arena. The one, I actually didn't mind the look. I liked it. But again, I'm sentimental towards early to mid-90s ECW, and I was there for some of it.
Lord.
But the part
it jerks at my heartstrings.
the part that I thought looked the worst was Claudio's entrance when you realize that the crew is all just set up under the overpass.
Yes. That's they wouldn't even, because of the Dick the Boozer's, ego, and they have to do their entrance. They had to go backstage, and there is no backstage. It's just piles of junk and a fucking parking lot. But anyhow, let's get to what went wrong in the ring. Here is a problem that they're developing, and it's going to happen next week in Philly, and maybe it won't spread too much, but FTR comes out. And by the way, did you see Cash get in the face of the 18-year-old guy with the FedEx outfit on or whatever?
They've been doing this a lot lately. I don't know if you've noticed it, but they've been doing this specific thing a lot lately.
Well, they shouldn't do it in Philadelphia. And especially, they really shouldn't do it at all, because here's the thing. Everybody's smart now. They know you can't touch them. You're not Roger Jackson. You can't touch them. But even in the days, the Terry Funks, the heels that would go out and challenge fans, in effect, and bow up at them, Terry taught me that he made it broader. Every once in a while, if somebody looked like that he had gotten over, it was something he said, Terry'd get up in the guy's face and he could back him down. That was a long time ago and a different guy. As a general rule, yell at the crowd as a broad collective rather than getting one guy's face, because he didn't back down. Cash has to stay there jawing. The guy's not going to back down from him because he knows he can sue Cash if Cash does anything. And Cash knows he can't do anything, but he thinks he's trying to fucking buffalo this guy. So he just got told off by a teenage FedEx driver. Just yell at them broadly. Don't pick one out and get in the face, because you ain't going to win, and then you just look foolish.
And it's happened a few times with FTR recently. There was one time where it may have been Cash where like they drew back like they were going to hit. Obviously, they weren't going to throw a punch, but it was just to get the person to flinch, and they didn't flinch. They stood there with their drink in their hand, and then this time the guy was blowing kisses.
Yeah.
So if these are the reactions you're getting as a heel, stop doing this.
Stop doing these things. So then they got in the ring, and Dax was going to start talking, but the microphone was not feeding the PA. It was feeding television. We could hear when he would take his hand and bang on it. We could hear those things, but he couldn't hear himself on the PA, so he thought the mic was dead. So he says it's not working. They hand him a second one, but it's the same thing, because it's not the problem with the microphones. It's the problem with the fucking audio idiot in the truck. And it's the same thing. We could hear everything. We're saying it's not working. And then he got bleeped for, I guess, said, give me a fucking microphone that works right, whatever. Finally, they were feeding the PA. Here's the problem. They start trying to cut the promo. They were pinned in the tag team title match at the pay-per-view by the Illegal Man. And they're going to browbeat Paul Turner, the referee, about it and cross-examine him about it. And then tell him they want him to reverse the decision and give them the belts. But the people are just hooting him down, and they're chanting, shut the fuck up. All that shit. By the way, they're on the Turner Networks. There was no TNT when I was part of the creative for the wrestling program on the Turner Network, but we would get memos about language, and nobody ever said fuck. But they have just quit trying to censor the chants from these crowds, and they're in Philadelphia. Need I say more? The same 2-hour program, what were there, 40, 50, 60 fucks from all the people chanting, shut the fuck up. And they're just letting it, they've given up. If somebody had said fuck in 1990, I believe they would have taken the program off the air. But the point is, they're chanting shut the fuck up because A, they're not interested in this angle or these people. B, they're a wise ass crowd. the most dedicated, devoted, hardcore, indie-minded crowd that's going to come to the 2300 toilet in Philadelphia. And they're just hijacking the show, and that is the meaning of it, hijacking the show. You can't get the fucking it's throwing the talent off. Nobody listens, so that then they need to be reacting to what the talent is saying and doing in the ring, and instead they're just taking off on their own, and we don't want to hear it. If they were interested in the angles and the personalities, they would listen. But instead, it's more and more of the Dominic Mysterio thing where it's fun for us to just shit on you, and we don't really care what you're saying to listen to it anyway. But it's happening on this program, not just here, but to like 3 or 4 different fucking people whenever they start talking. And if the people aren't listening, you can't get your points across. And then the stories are bad enough to begin with. Don't make them any harder to understand. Do you see the point I'm making?
I do.
And I don't know how they're going to get out of this. And also, Dax is the one that cross-examined Paul Turner. There's a manager for that. Because Dax's strong point of his working or his talking is not his talking. It's his working. But then Stokely fires up and starts browbeating Paul Turner when he said the decision is final, but then the fans are chanting on their own, no hose, no hose. Because, they've done the comedy where Stokely don't get no hose. But they're not listening to what he's doing. And he's trying to do a deal with Paul Turner where he gives Paul the chest finger and Paul gives it back to him. And FTR gets in the middle, but the people had not paid any attention. Here comes Edge's music. And he comes out, and now they like that because they like him. But he comes out alone. He's looking around. There's no Christian Cage. And then suddenly in the ring, Cage appears from behind and gives Stokely his finish, the unprettier, or whatever they call it these days. The manager gets hit first. So he lays Stokely out, and then the FTR turns around, and Edge and Christian beat them up. And then here come the referees and 15 security guys. They have a big pull apart. Every outlaw indie guy in Philadelphia was booked that had a black shirt. And they got FTR to the entranceway, and Stokely's all shook up. And Christian and Edge cut the promo and still managed to do some comedy because Christian is going to say, your fathers, you have fathers. And Edge is like, oh, don't do that. And then the fans want him to do it. Okay, do it. And your fathers are dead. And they announce a tag team match for All Out in Toronto. But nobody listened to the majority of what went on there. They just amused themselves. And out of the 2 teams that Edge and Christian could face, we said it took the new off of them teaming up to go against Luchasaurus. And originally it was supposed to be Nick Plain and Pip Sabian. It should have been in Toronto. It should have been against FTR. And if they had to get the belts off the Hurt Business, then FTR should have been the champions. Instead of this goofy fucking Brody King and Brodito or whatever the fuck. But the point is, the fans are just taking over because all they're there to see is people break furniture, and they're not listening to any of the guys try to set up any of the stories. Would they have done this to the CM Punks, the Drew McIntyres, the Roman Reigns, the Paul Heymans, the Braun Breakers, even the main stars in the industry? No, they're interested. They might want to boo what they're saying, but they want to hear it. With this, they've already said, this shit ain't going to be worth a shit anyway. Let's just have fun. Do you think I'm overstating this?
Well, no, I mean, you're the expert. I would listen to you before I listen to me. I think you're right about the fact that the fans, I mean, Stokely's just a part of the thing now, like Tully was. He's like a comedy Tully.
Yeah.
But there's no reason to want to see him get his ass kicked. He's already gotten his ass kicked numerous times. As far as Dax here, maybe it was.
Wait a minute, can you imagine? Hold that thought, but can you imagine if we'd pitched a finish to Dusty, much less him giving us one like this, where the Midnight Express is in the ring, we beat the job guys, and then here comes Dusty, and he knocks me out first. What the fuck in the world?
Yeah. No, he has to get to you, which gives Bobby a chance to take a great bump, which is always nice.
There you go. Yeah. But anyway, go ahead, Dax.
But, I agree Dax's strong point ain't on the mic. However, I thought maybe it was because of the frustration with the mic issue and just kind of yelling it out and not hearing himself back right. I thought he had more intensity in whatever he was yelling at the referee here than anything else. I thought it was one of his best moments on the mic, actually.
Well, but also he was trying to be heard over, a lot of times people that weren't fucking listening.
He sounded like someone who didn't practice what he was going to say, someone who was trying to just say something. I actually like that.
But that's the thing, is that they've put the cart before the horse, in that the manager should be the one to lay out the grievance. Then the wrestler should be the one to back it up and fucking intimidate the fucking guy who's not cooperating with the manager. And then when the baby face comes out, then the fucking wrestlers go to the baby faces and they fucking fight them, and maybe, as you said, get through them to get to the manager, but not completely, because that's the tease to continue this. Because in a perfect world, the manager has caused them, the baby faces, endless strife, caused them to lose, caused them to get beat, caused them to get hurt, whatever, so that's the prize that they get in the claw machine when they finally get a hold of him. But this is all goddamn cattywampers.
And to me, there was again, I lost myself a little bit in the moment because I used to be in that building. It's a different crew of people, but Philadelphia stays Philadelphia. Philadelphia never changes. And I was enjoying the hell out of those fans just doing what they always do. But what do you think? I mean, I guess you kind of said, I was going to say, what do you think of the setup to FTR versus Edge and Christian?
Well, that's the thing. They shouldn't have already had a match together, Edge and Christian, against these other two that for all the reasons it was things that were wrong with it that we talked about when we reviewed it, that their first match back as a team, Edge and Christian, they still have to put over the Lizard as being somewhat of a force because the other guy broke his foot and blah, blah, blah. They should have done some type of focused angle to Edge and Christian versus FTR, where at least FTR can do the things in the ring to make the focus on Edge and Christian, rather than them having to be the veterans trying to get these greenhorns over. And in Toronto, their hometown, and their career comes full circle. That could have been something that was promoted. You've taken a lot of the icing off the cake and made it less palatable by having this false start and crummy match in Wembley. But nevertheless, that's my opinion. Or not Wembley, but England. Or good old Wembley, England. Right down the road from West Faversham. You want to move on here, Brian?
We must.
We must, because Dick the Boozer faced all 187 pounds of Danny Garcia. They could get away with announcing him as 200, but they just have to slap you in the face with there's nothing about this guy that's intimidating in any fashion. And at least you notice that Boozer, he walked through the back in the hallway, but not off the street, because I assume he was scared of being mugged in that neighborhood. But after almost 20 minutes of this, with the entrances and everything, Moxley kicked out of a pile driver. And then Garcia grabbed Moxley's legs and was stepping through like he was going to get him in a sharpshooter or something. And were you even paying attention to this? Did you see how he pinned him, how Moxley pinned Garcia?
Yeah, I saw.
He small packaged himself.
Talent.
Garcia steps through Moxley's legs like he's going to set up a figure four or a sharpshooter or something where he's going to turn, and they're trying to do the finish where when the guy starts turning, the other guy small packages him. But Garcia small packaged himself. He just rolled down and tucked his head under and put his shoulders down without Moxley moving or doing anything. And then when his shoulders were already down, then Moxley hooked the head because it was right next to him. 1, 2, 3. And even the announcers, you could hear the announcers go, they couldn't hold their reaction of what the fuck did he just do? And then said, oh, Moxley capitalized. Yeah, he noticed the guy had just decided to pin himself right next to him and took advantage of it.
Capitalized, yeah.
20 minutes to get there.
I give Daniel Garcia credit. He doesn't age. He still looks like a 22-year-old skinny kid who came in. You're thinking, oh, he'll fill out one day. It hasn't happened. And
look at the difference in Kyle. Old Kyle Felcher.
He takes the right vitamins too.
Well, but he's tanned and he's had some gear made. He's made an attempt at a gimmick. And here comes Garcia looking like mope face.
Anyway, there was a post-match, Jim. I understand.
Yes, there was, because there was Wheeler useless in the middle of the ring with that. We'll talk about mope face and somebody that looks like they ought to be goddamn parking cars. He's in just, I can't even call him street clothes. He's just in frump clothes. And he's the one who gets on the microphone and said Moxley is not going to fight Darby Allin, while Moxley and Garcia were down on the floor arguing with each other, and they were clearly wanting us to see it and getting camera shots of it. And then they went to break, and when they came back from break, Wheeler was still in the ring with the microphone. And again, he starts doing a promo. I used to do ring crew here as a teenager. And the fans are just, shut the fuck up. And it's the same thing. He's trying to set up this story of his background there and how he's come so far and whatever. But he looks like a no boy, a nobody, or a no boy, possibly, rather than a young boy. New Japan had young boys, but he's a no boy. The fans don't care. The material makes no sense and is not really interesting, and they're just chanting over him. And then the lights go out and the hook signal goes up on the roof of the warehouse. And that's new music, right? It was a very...
It is. I liked it.
It was very new sounding. Hook walks out to the ring, gets a choke on this fucking guy, then lets it go, then punches him and leaves. And everybody... That was pretty much it, wasn't it? Did you see more? Did I miss something?
Did I see more? Are you talking about the career of Hook? Or are you talking about this specific thing?
Well, then no, the specific thing here, nobody was, yes, they reacted to, oh, it's Hook, but it wasn't like, oh my God, it's Hook. He walked out there. He'd got a choke on the guy. He let the choke go. He hit the ropes. He punched him. The guy that's been beaten by everybody else takes a fucking bump. And he walked out of the building. I don't know that they found a needle mover here.
Let's just hope it leads to Hook versus Mox. That could be an all-time classic.
Good God.
It's Philadelphia. It's where Taz was a star. Taz is on commentary. They've been building up or showing vignettes for the return of Hook. They've got new music ready to go. Again, he's another one of these guys.
Just because the Rotary Club was recognizing Nick Goulas doesn't mean that George has to be praised and feted as well.
Hook's been there for like 5 years now. Same question as Daniel Garcia. Same. Well, Wheeler Yuta, at least they've let him grow his hair and he just gets beat up not as just a generic job guy, but as Moxley's job guy. But Hook, has there been any growth? Has there been any change? You still look at him like, oh, he has potential. Well, how long does that work for? He's been there forever now.
Well, he's back.
All right. We'll see what happens.
All righty. Levitating past, MJF had a pre-taped interview from Forbidden Door after his match where he narrated the way that he got screwed over with B-roll. And again, it's just, he badly needs a change of scenery and some people to interact with that are in any way interesting. And speaking of people who are, well, they're in one way, some of these people are interesting, but not in a way that I'd want to watch them for that long. Penelope Pitstop and Megan Brain wrestled Chris Statlander and Harley Cameron. They did that. You happen to know who won, Brian?
I believe Megan and Penelope won.
Well, good for them. And then we were at 9:00. I'm telling you, these shows are fucking dreary. I'm zipping. Mercedes Moon did an in-ring promo. They set up the balloons, the flowers, a table with all of her 9 belts. She has now got 9 of the outlaw indie girl promotion belts around the world that Tony has either bought or negotiated for her. And she thinks it's a big fucking deal. And as a matter of fact, some of these fans think it's a big fucking deal, overlooking the fact that it's a goddamn ridiculous fucking deal because none of these belts have ever been heard of before, but they look nice. She was wearing a stripper outfit or something she may have picked up on South Street. She's got the 9 phony belts, and her promo is Ultimo Dragon had 10 belts. What the? How old is she? Wasn't that 30 years ago? And did anybody give a shit then? Did Ultimo Dragon's 10 belts ever get him a featured spot in any way in the WCW hierarchy?
Well, he was working in WCW. It didn't really boost him.
Yeah,
too much.
he was working his ass off on TV, getting the shit kicked out of him.
It was a big deal in Japan, of course, where
I'm
there
sure
are lots of photos of him with his lots of belts and the lots of magazines they used to have.
How many belts did Nash and Hall and Hogan have when they were working 1/10 as much and fucking making 10 times as much? But this was the 9:00 hour, and it was 3 or 4 minutes because there was nothing for her to say that was any new. Just, I'm going to get 10 belts and break the record. Or whatever the fuck. It lasted 3 or 4 minutes. She did the stripper dance again. And off she went. Whew. Mark Briscoe couldn't be there because he had a new baby. Is that 10? He's had a lot of kids. Bless those Briscoes. But, we love Mark Briscoe, but he even said in this promo, he's talking about MJF. It was a good promo as always, but he even said, people say I never win the big one. You know what? Because you never win the big one. We'd love to see him win the big one, but I think a lot of people have quit waiting. Did you see the 8-man tag team confrontation, Brian? The all-star 8-man tag team cataclysmic fucking Zabada.
I didn't watch the entirety of the match. I saw the beginning, the setup for it. I saw the ending of it and a few points in the middle, but this was a big ball of I don't give a shit, so I did the best I could.
I was more intrigued by
I was more intrigued by the intro, the setup there, the follow-up to the big return of Wardlow.
Well, there's the thing is that people say that AEW doesn't, their characters, their talent don't grow and expand and metamorphosize and everything. Well, Wardlow, a mere 4 or 5 years ago, he was just a flunky standing in a corner while all the other guys got all the attention. And now here today in 2025, he's a flunky standing in the corner while the other guys get all the attention. It was an 8-man tag team match, playa, that Tony Khan loves, with Oblada, the worst Japanese wrestler in history, Josh Alexander, Take a Shit, he's back, and our friend Frank Mortis, with Don in, of course, in his normal position, talking instead of managing, and Wardlow hanging around as a stooge in case anybody needed anything. They debut this guy by beating up a goddamn manager. Why are all the managers getting beat up? But all the damage had been done, and then he comes in and does practically nothing on a pay-per-view, and then follows up on the TV afterwards by doing completely nothing. How was this worth waiting 2 years for?
It wasn't. He just came out there and stood there and laughed alongside Don Callis as other people came out to wrestle.
Which, by the way, was Kevin Knight, Hong Kong Phooey, Bandito, and Burger King. And then with entrances again, 15 minutes. And then what's indicative of this whole program, Josh Alexander, the heel, outsmarted Spitball, the babyface, avoided his offensive move and pinned him clean 1, 2, 3.
Is that the first time we've seen him pin someone?
I don't know, but I don't think he's won anything yet. But how in the world does that finish get by multiple heads? How in the world do they think, wait, how does the babyface go, wait a minute, I'm going to try to do my fancy shit and you're just going to outsmart me and beat me 1, 2, 3? Then why are you the heel? Why aren't you the babyface? What the...
Well, obviously there's no one involved.
Anyway.
Obviously there was no one involved in that match or producing that match who understood that. That's the problem.
Or maybe they just didn't care because it doesn't make any sense anyway. None of the rest of it. So, but then we got to Hangnail Adam Page. He did an in-ring promo as usual in his ill humor. He appears very dyspeptic, never smiles. He's always frowny and smile upside downy. He thanked Ospreay for all that he's done for him and the company, and we'll miss you, and got the fans to chant for Ospreay a little bit. And then he started in on MJF, and that's where I said, God, this makes the Impact Zone at Universal look like Madison Square Garden, because he's supposedly a world champion of something. And with the spectacle that the WWE is presenting these days, he's in this fucking barn in Philly. And then here comes Don Fallis's music again. And at least they were listening to Page, but now that he comes out, Don, he's doing the promo in the entranceway, and the fans are back to shut the fuck up. And it's the same shit. They don't want to listen. They don't care. They want to just do what amuses them. And Don wants the title back in the family. So here comes Lance Archer, Josh Alexander, Chia, and Rocky Romero. And they're all, so here's a bunch of middle card fucking heels that have come out, and Page tackles all of them. And then they start beating Page up. And the middle card heels are beating up the world champion until guess who saves him? Spitball and Kevin Knight. So now he's got preliminary middle card underneath baby faces coming to save the world champion. And then Rocky Romero stops them with a police baton that Don just happens to have in his pocket. And then Kenny's music plays. And Kenny comes out and clears the ring. And he and Page do some really shitty looking choreography with Lance Archer that didn't materialize like I'm sure they wanted it to. And then the heels ran off. So, again, they need a world champion that's also the top guy in the company. Except it can't be Kenny now because he's part-time at best because of his physical condition. It can't be Osprey.
Yeah, part-time at best, and when he is there, you probably have to put him in a tag team or something so he doesn't have to do everything.
Right. Can't be Osprey because he's about to get surgery. Can't be Swerve because he's about to get surgery.
He had his meniscus done. I just saw that.
Which is a fancy word for cartilage, but it's still going to be a couple months before he can do shit that he should be normally does. So they can't have a Star as their babyface world champion because they don't have any.
Maybe they could bring back Wardlow as a babyface. Oh, wait.
He's managing the middle card heels. We don't have time for him.
He's with the manager. He's not even the manager. He's just with the manager.
Well, that's true. Yeah, he's stooging for. So then they had a match for the 6-man tag team title with Samoa Joe, Powerhouse Hobbs, and Shapoopy against Ricochet, and his stooges are Tia Leone and Bishop Sheen. I should use his full name, Bishop Fulton J. Sheen. Look it up, kids. It's hilarious. And the babyfaces won and left. And then the Hurt Syndicate's music played. And out came Bobby Lashley and Shelton Benjamin and got in a fight in the aisleway with Ricochet stooges while Ricochet was selling in the ring. They fought these two in a big 4-way and fought to the back with nobody really gaining an advantage. Did I miss something? Were they involved in potentially causing the anything to go on here tonight? Yeah. They were at the pay-per-view, right?
Yeah, they came out as mascots in New Japan, like jackets and everything with masks on, and they beat up or they didn't even really beat them up. They just kind of got them to fight with them away from the ring.
Yeah, they fought off.
Yeah.
But why if these guys had this whole the Hurt Syndicate are heels, so why did they wait to come out to fight these other guys that cost them the belts while the other match was going on when everybody else just does whatever they want to do?
Well, the other thing too was right before the finish, it was really brief and it wasn't shot well, and I did not go back to watch it, and I meant to. Some guy jumps up and hits one of the heels, and Excalibur goes, "Oh, it's MVP!" And then he was gone, and I didn't even see him.
What?
Yeah, you didn't see that part? Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Because MVP didn't come out with...
No, he did not.
Oh, God damn it. Anyway, so now we gotta watch Bobby Lashley and Shelton Benjamin work with the two undercard Samoan-looking fellas. All righty.
Yeah. Again, you need top baby faces right now. Do something. Just do something else. Tony, whatever you're thinking, do the opposite.
Well, speaking of the opposite, they finished this program up, and I will finish this review up. It was going to be a Falls Count Anywhere match with Claudio Castagnoli and Darby Allin. So they show Claudio walking through the backstage area of this hovel, and suddenly Darby dives off the top of a fucking mobile home trailer onto Claudio. And then Claudio goes and puts him in a shopping cart and pushes him into a bunch of chairs, and then picks him up and body slams him through a flat screen TV stretched out amongst two chairs with a concrete floor underneath. Then they get back up and they fight into the arena where they are going to start having the Falls Count Anywhere match, and Darby is already up doing dives, and he climbs a pillar 20 feet and does a coffin drop off the pillar 45 seconds after he was slammed through the flat screen TV. And I see, you know what? Why? Why? I'm done. I turned it off. I don't know, and I don't fucking care. Did they kill him or did he survive?
Once again, Darby Allin survives. Darby Allin wins the match. I like when the brawl started outside and you saw those workers in the back sitting there. No one got up. No one looked concerned. They just looked over at this happening.
And now you about workers, you mean actual people working there at the building, not the other wrestler, the workers.
Yeah, who? I mean, these were just like,
Well, I know you. I know you trained at Knox Pro Wrestling, so I don't know your terminology. The popcorn guy is not scared of this shit.
Well, we talk about they need top baby faces. They do have Darby, who seems to not only take a beating, but want to take a beating. They're doing these things to him because he's asking them to do these things to him.
I know. And actually they are so far in the soup right now that it probably wouldn't be a bad idea for Darby to be their top baby face and world champion, but obviously for a short period of time until they can set something else up, because people like him. He has the weird charisma, even though he's a fucking moron. And short term, yay, but to carry a company, no. To be featured in the main events of pay-per-views with different type of opponents, especially with the slim pickings on that roster, no, not over a long period of time. You need a guy that looks better than that. I'm sorry. Osprey. I'm not talking about Lex Luger. I'm talking about Osprey. Wouldn't be unacceptable, cosmetically unpleasing, but not fucking Darby, because then you've limited yourself to looking like a fucking niche level indie.
Well, of course, Jim, Orange Cassidy is also due to return anytime now.
Oh, God. No, don't tell me that. This show can't get any worse. Oh, wait a minute. I hear Robert Fuller now telling Jerry Jarrett, oh, yes, it can.
Orange Cassidy due to return. Chris Jericho looking for a contract somewhere.
Somewhere else.
Anywhere. Anyone who will pay. He will be there. But that was AEW
But that was
Dynamite.
the program, the Dynamite episode. Brian, do you have any closing thoughts on last Wednesday's Dynamite?
Again, I actually thought one of the positives was the look, and you hated it completely.
Yeah.
I thought it looked all right. I like the energy of that crowd. It's like if the NXT crowd was just evil. That's like what the Philadelphia crowd is. I love it. And we'll see, you pointed out all the big problems with like every angle they did, let alone matches or pinfalls or how they happened or who pinned who or what. There's no one there. I mean, I hate to reference the Jake Hager interview. It's not like he's the greatest source in the world. But there's like no one there, as he talked about, who can talk Tony off being Tony. And Tony thinks he has the instincts. He said that in his own interview. The big thing he had to do was trust his instincts and go with his instincts. He thinks he has instincts. He thinks he understands.
I think his instincts stink.
He thinks he understands booking philosophy because he watched a lot of angles on tapes. But the problems with AEW always remain the same problems, and it's Tony Khan. That's why WWE's kicking the shit out of him. And it's going to be a full house pretty soon. But the problem is Tony, and Tony doesn't see that. Tony thinks that he's like the biggest asset of AEW.
Well, I think he should stop after the first three letters. See, now you didn't get that, did you?
I got that. That was Dynamite.
Oh.
You got that too.
Well, before we talk about whether anybody watched this thing or not, Brian, what in the world is going on in the world of the Arcadian Vanguard Podcast Network, where people do indeed listen to the programs?
That's right. Get information about all the shows on Twitter at Superpodcast or on Facebook at facebook.com/Arcadian Vanguard. Of course, each and every day, get the wrestling news for free. Your morning wrestling newscast with more to come. TheWrestlingNews.com directly, or look for The Wrestling News wherever you find your favorite podcast. No clickbait. No paywall, just the wrestling news. Want to make mention, Stick to Wrestling with John McAdam, a look at 40 years ago in Mid-South Wrestling, 1985. Find out about this Very, very important year for Mid-South. It was kind of the changing of the guard that year. McAdamPod.com, wherever you find your favorite podcast, look for Stick to Wrestling with John McAdam. And of course, the 605 Super Podcast, The Mothership! Hear all your sound effects today. Go through the archive, 605pod.com, wherever you find your favorite podcast, The Mothership.
Well, Mother, where are we at on the ratings? I said they were an immovable object at the top of the program. Did they move from last week, where they were down in the dregs of the dumpster, down below 600,000? It's looking bad. The end is near. The sky is falling. What's going on this week?
Well, Jim, the ratings are in. AEW Dynamite, August 27th, 2025, on TBS from 8 to 10:08 p.m. On average, watched by 585,000 viewers.
Ouch.
A .13 in the key demo, 18 to 49, which is I believe it's the all-time low. No, it says lowest viewership for Dynamite since March 5th. I'm going by WrestleNomics here, but I thought it was the all-time low.
Oh, no, they've been lower.
In the key
but
demo.
It's pretty low.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but 585.
It's mighty low.
585, Jim.
Well, thank you very much. 585. I'll see you that and raise you 600. No, they're still below 600, but where now is this one of those shows that started with a promising fashion and then just plummeted from there? Or is this one of those shows where it was the diehard fans that kind of started and stayed there from beginning to end?
And again, the key demo number lower than it's been. Let's go to the quarterly numbers, the quarterly hour breakdown, the quarters here. These are compiled by WrestleNomics. Quarter 1, 8 to 8:15 p.m. The FTR Adam Copeland live angle and the Darby Allin promo, 638,000 viewers.
Gee, now last week, they had a wonderful first quarter, didn't they? And then things started, or am I thinking the week before? Because that's pretty puny for the first quarter, 638,000. They used to not fall below 600. Now that's where they're starting.
And again, 166,000 in the key demo. That's a low for the start of the show. Quarter 2, 8:15, 8:30 p.m. Jon Moxley versus Daniel Garcia with picture-in-picture, 610,000 viewers.
So again, this is one of those weeks where they can look positively that they didn't lose 100,000 viewers in the first 15 minutes like they often do. They just started real low and only lost 28.
Well, we roll into quarter 3, 8:30 to 8:45 p.m. The continuation of Moxley versus Garcia, the post-match with the Death Riders and Matt Menard, an ad break, the Wheeler Yuta hook live angle, the MJF tape promo, and the start of Megan Bayne and Penelope Ford versus Harley Cameron and Chris Statlander, 622,000 viewers.
Good Lord, they actually picked up 12,000. So this is one of those episodes where only the sickos decided to pop in, and they're going to stick with it until almost the bitter end. I can see that now.
Well, we go to the bitter quarter 4, 8:45 to 9 p.m. The continuation of Bayne and Ford versus Cameron and Statlander with picture-in-picture. The post-match with Willow Nightingale, an ad break, and the Mercedes Moné live promo, 553,000 viewers.
Oh.
150,000 in the key demo. That's the low of the show.
Jeez, oh, Pete. Mercedes made them all moan. But what about the top of the hour, Brian? The big 9 o'clock hour.
We go to the big 9 o'clock hour, 9 to 9:15 p.m., quarter 5. Mark Briscoe's backstage promo, Don Callis' live promo, and Brodito and Jet Speed versus the Don Callis family with picture-in-picture, 591,000 viewers.
Good God. So once that Mercedes was out of there, they figured it's safe to come back. And that's 38,000 to the good. Because they didn't have the Bucks out here this week to, challenge Mercedes for ratings tanking dominance.
Well, let's see if the good continues, Jim. We go to quarter 6, 9:15 and 9:30 p.m. The continuation of Brodito and Jet Speed versus the Callis family. An ad break. The Adam Page Callis family live angle. 566,000 viewers.
Okay, now we're down to almost the Mercedes low period, and I'm predicting a steady little drop off from here. What do you think?
I think we go to quarter 7, 9:30 to 9:45 p.m. The continuation of the Page and Callis family live angle with the Kenny Omega return. Tony Storm and Mina Shirakawa and Athena's promo. And the start of the Ops versus the Gates of Agony and Ricochet with picture-in-picture. 549,000 viewers.
Now we're at our low. How much lower can we go?
Well, we go to quarter 8, 9:45 to 10 p.m. We have a 6-minute overrun. Continuation of the previous 6-man tag match. An ad break. And Claudio Castagnoli versus Darby Allin with picture-in-picture. 572,000 viewers.
Aha!
6-minute overrun, continuation of the match, and the post-match with the Death Riders. 550,000 viewers.
Poor things. They just bail out at the end quickly. So the Darby factor got them an extra 23,000 people there at the end. Well, that ain't bad at all. Wow. If year over year, they can't get the picture that they're just doing the same shit with the same people or the same kind of shit with people that look the same. And every year they lose another 100,000 people off their average. Well, there you go.
Well, there they go. I know Tony says everything's up year over year, but this is pretty down. And
his ego, his dosage, many things are up.
The best thing he has going for him in terms of ratings is the fact that no one knows the max ratings. No one can confirm nor deny any of the numbers out there. And all he can do is shrug and say, hey, I don't know anything either. That's all I know. But that's AEW Dynamite.